Welcome and hello. This is a tutorial video in WRIMS. And in this video, I'm going to share some tips and tricks on the user interface that I've recently learned, specifically displaying different interface views, opening a project from a zip file, setting the solver engine to CBC, forcing WRESL Plus to compute, and then also describing the outline panel. So let's go ahead and get started. The first one is different interface views. Here we have the user interface, and across the top you see these different tabs. There's IDE, which is currently selected, DSS, schematics, schematic editor, and so on. So IDE basically functions like a text editor, like your typical interactive development environment. So if I wanted to select a WRESL file, for instance, I can go ahead and do that. 1 second. Here we go, arcschannels.wresl. So if I double click that file, boom, up comes my text editor. I can go ahead and modify that text file and then do all the other standard text editing you would expect from any IDE. Okay. If I wanted to open up another file, that opens up in another tab right here. And of course, I have IDE selected. The next tab over is DSS. So this is, of course, your database. If you click on DSS, and let's see, it doesn't make sense to open up these particular files, but you can click on DSS plot or DSS table. And then down below here, we have tabs for DSS compare and DSS catalog view. You can look at your results once they're run. And of course, you'd want to reference some sort of DSS file at that time. So when I double click on this DSS file, what it's doing is opening up in DSS view, which is also very helpful. But if you wanted to view DSS file data within WRIMS, then there's functionality to do that using these tabs, which I'll have to explain once we get some results. All right, the next tab over is schematic and schematic editor. I'll describe these two together. Schematic is basically viewing a schematic of your system. So you've got nodes, you've got reservoirs, you've got demands, you've got supplies, and you have conveyance elements such as channels to move the water around. So that's what you would see in the schematic tab. And then schematic editor is basically just a way to build and edit that schematic. So we'll see that in action a little bit later. And then there are a couple other tabs, calsim, hydro, and database development. All right, the next topic in this lecture is opening a project from inside a zip file. So right now, if I go back to my project explorer here, I have this project called L4 Springfield, which is this file right here, Springfield. I also have a Springfield 2 that's zipped up. That's the one we want to open directly from our WRIMS application. So from WRIMS, typically if you want to create a new project, you go File, and then New, and then Project, or you can just go right click, New, and Project from the Project Explorer window. But in this case, when it's within a zip file, there's a utility within WRIMS that will extract the zip file contents and open the project in the same step. So to do that, you'll go up to File, and then Load Zip File. Okay, now I need to navigate to that zip file. So one moment. Here's the project directory. Okay, here's Springfield and then Springfield2.zip. So I'll click that. That's set. And then I'll click OK. And okay, so I was getting this error when I was preparing for this lesson. I wasn't sure if it would work or not, but I'm doing something wrong here. Anyway, that's the process that was explained to me, and I may have to just modify something to get that to work. So let's just move on to the next one, which is to set the solver engine to CBC, which means if you go up to the run menu and then click on options, there's a dialog box here. The first tab is general. Select that, which it should be selected by default already. And then the first item here is solver, set it to CBC. There's a drop down to select either CBC or XA. XA, I understand, is the proprietary solver that requires a license to run, but CBC is built into WRIMS 2. So just go ahead and use CBC if you want, and then click OK. All right, next up is to force the WRESL Plus engine to compute instead of just WRESL. So WRIMS 2 is built with WRESL Plus, and I suppose there are some older models that you may want to run using just WRESL, not WRESL Plus. Otherwise, by default, I'm probably just going to be running on WRESL Plus unless I have a good reason not to. So to do that, go ahead and select your project, right click, and then come down to Run, and then Run Configurations, and then click on your configuration. I'll call Launch File, and then click on the configuration tab right here. You can also open up this run configuration directly from the launch file. If you click on the launch file down here, right click and then run as, and then run configurations. All right, so that automatically opens up the same dialog box, but then it pre-selects that specific launch file. So the second tab over is configuration, and then this checkbox right here for WRESL Plus is the one we want to select. So just go ahead and make sure that that is checked on if you want to enforce WRESL Plus, and then let's just go ahead and run it. So it finished up already. It was a fairly simple model. Down here in the console window, I'll go ahead and scroll to the top and then scroll down a little bit. We should have confirmation that it says the WRESL Plus parser was used. Yep, here it is right here. WRESL Plus parsing complete, 0 errors. Next and last is the outline panel. So down here in the bottom left is an outline panel. It may be positioned a little bit different in your IDE, but it should be somewhere. This is a way to quickly identify where in a WRESL file or any file a specific variable is first defined. So I'm going to go and open up a couple WRESL files right now. Let's start with this first one, arcs channel. So I'll double click, boom. Okay, so let me give that some more space. And then when I click on that file, I see the defined variables down here in the bottom left in the Outlook panel. So we have a variable called C underscore SFR1, C underscore SRF2, and so on, which represent the different variables right here. So as I click on that row where the variable is defined, it also highlights down here in the outline tab, and vice versa. If I highlight the variable down here in the outline tab, it will take me to that line in the file where that particular variable is defined. Now that may be pretty trivial in this case because we only have 6 lines of code. There's 6 variables. It's all definitions. However, if you had a file with hundreds or thousands of lines, having a little shortcut to where the variables are defined could be very helpful. Also wanted to mention that the type of variable is also identified in the little icon here. So we're seeing the letter D as in dog for all 6 of these variables, which represents decision variables. The other types of variables are S for state variables, G for goal variables, or the constraints, and then A for an alias variable. So let's go ahead and take a look at a few other types of variables and the icons. So again, D is for decision variable. Let's look at, say, constraints reservoirs right here. These are goal variables. So we have goal representing the constraint that's just defined over here. And then we should see the little green G icon beside each of these 3 variables. If I click on arcs inflow, let me just double click that. Now we have ISF lake, that's the inflow, and that's known, i.e. a state variable, and that's why we have the letter S right here next to that variable down here in the outline panel. Well, that was all I had prepared for this lesson. Just a few things I learned about the user interface within WRIMS, different views, setting the CBC, loading a zip file, the WRESL Plus enforcement, and then the outline panel.